Welcome to Sun Sports One-on-One. I'm Derek McGregor, and every week I'll be speaking to managers about what makes them tick, who their biggest influences are, and how they deal with the stresses and strains of management. Today I'm meeting Queen's Park head coach Callum Davidson. Callum opens up in a wide-ranging interview about every aspect of his management and how, as a person, he deals with everyday life as a football manager. I hope you enjoy it. This morning at Queen's Park Training Centre on the outskirts of Glasgow City Centre. Did you sleep well? As a manager, do you generally sleep well?
Yeah, it's one thing I'm actually quite good at. I'm pretty good. I can get to sleep pretty quick, and the only thing is try to wake up in the morning. So
you're not a morning person?
No, I'm a morning person. I like getting up. I just enjoy my sleep. I always have done.
When you know you've got a big decision to make the next day, like possibly a team selection, you're having to tell somebody they're going to be dropped. Is that something you find difficult with the night before? Or
yeah, it's part and parcel of the job. Yeah, it's part and parcel of the job. Sometimes, sometimes it's the easier ones. Sometimes it's the difficult ones when you don't really have a reason. You're just going with your gut and you're going to change the team, and you're going to have to make big decisions. The big thing is sometimes you look at it and it's the player's career you're thinking about and what you're doing, so it's a really difficult one. Sometimes, yeah, so that answers the question, yeah, that's one thing that sometimes is hard, decisions on players, what you're doing with them, etc. Because it's not like a game of chat manager where you can just say, yeah, you go, you stay. It's people's livelihoods that you're thinking about. You're
quite an experienced manager now. Does it get any easier, that kind of chat with a player that he's out the team, basically?
I think sometimes it was out the team, no. I think the only thing I've learned is I always just try and be as honest as I can. If you try and sort of beat about in the bush, you try and say things, I think sometimes you just need to be honest with them straight. If you don't like it, they don't like it, and you just got to move on. So that's just the best way I've found to deal with them now.
But just being straight with them, that's the most important thing, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. As a player, I always like the managers when they're straight with me. Why am I not playing? Well, you're not good enough. Okay, done. I'll play better. That's it, get on with it. So that's what I find is the best way to deal with it.
How would you hope the players see you as a manager?
Pretty honest, pretty hard working. Give people chances. Try to be fair. Obviously I am enthusiastic. Obviously I love my job. I want to make them better. So I think that's the big thing. As long as they know that I'm trying to make them better, that's the big thing for me.
Are you kind of bad cop, good cop kind of combination? What's generally your management style?
I'm normally pretty calm. Although after Saturday's game they might not say the same scenario, but normally I'm pretty calm. I try and logically think about things. I don't really rush in. Go in obviously with 2 feet. I'm not like my tackles back in the day. So I normally try and have a calm approach, try and think about what I'm going to say, how I'm going to react to things. I think sometimes you make better decisions when you have a wee reflection. You give yourself a little bit of time, and that's probably the way I manage, and that's probably how I make better decisions. I think if I do jump in, sometimes I can think 24 hours later, why did I say that, or why did I do that? So I always try and take my time and make good decisions.
Are you conscious of trying not to lose the plot too often? Do you kind of, is it almost like calculating there's a time to do it and not to do it?
Yeah, I think so. I very, very rarely I've done it in my career, so I think it's one of those. I think if you do it all the time, you lose effect. If you don't do it at all, sometimes you think, well, it doesn't matter what the manager says. So sometimes you still don't have the ball and shout. Sometimes you've got to make hard decisions, that reflects what you're thinking. So sometimes it's not always about being aggressive in the changing room. It's about making hard calls and challenging people to be better.
Clearly it's a very emotional game, and sometimes it's just impossible to kind of control your feelings. Are you the type that when you lose the plot, you're very angry, the players have to take cover?
No.
Do you throw things?
No.
Those days gone?
Oh, those days are past. Those days are past. I don't think. I've had a few experiences, obviously through my playing career with it. I think there's a slightly different approach nowadays. I think you've got to be a bit more calculated. I don't think you get away with it. The flip charts might not agree with me, but I think on that side of it, I think it's very, very few and far between.
Have you ever had, obviously as a player, have you ever had to duck a sandwich plate or a tea urn? Have you seen that?
I know.
Back in the day?
Probably the funniest one I ever had was Paul Sturrock was going absolutely nuts, and he picked up a cup and tried to chuck it across the room, but he didn't realise it was a plastic cup, and the coffee went all over him. And then all I could see was John Blackley in the background chuckling, so we all started laughing. So that was a funny moment.
I think it's fair to say that the effect he was trying to create was lost in a second.
Yeah, but you know what? It probably calmed everybody down and relaxed everybody. I think sometimes when you're obviously really aggressive and angry, it puts a little bit more tension. But also, I think you've got to put your players under pressure. I think it's how you practice. So I'm a big believer, like other sports. So I like to think, how do you perform under pressure? So sometimes you've got to create situations where you're putting them under pressure, and how do they deal with it? Because the higher they go, and that's my job, is to try and make players better. The higher they go, how will they deal with that pressure?
Who would you rate as your biggest influences, mentor figures? Obviously, both as a player and a manager, people who possibly are even still now confidants for you, somebody you can turn to?
Obviously, Craig Brown. He was probably a huge influence in my career. How he managed, how he coached, how his personality. Loads of time for me. He had obviously lots of time for me as well. So, he was a big one on that side of it.
Had it been particularly emotional for you when Craig sadly passed?
Yeah, it was. A really sad time. He'd always stop every time I saw him. He'd stop and chat to me for ages. How am I doing? Obviously ask me questions. How's my career going? What am I thinking? He signed, played for Scotland. He signed me for Preston. So yeah, it was a really sad time. A great man, sadly gone past.
Any other particular managers? I mean, you played for a lot of good managers, Callum.
Yeah, Roy Hodgson, Paul Sturrock, these type of guys, Alan Irvine. I think they're all of them are pretty honest and pretty straightforward, and I think that's how I've probably kind of, if I actually reflect on it and you ask me the question, it's probably how I've sort of went, well, that's what I want to do and how I want to manage. So they were really good player-wise. I still speak to a few. I work with Gary and Tommy. Or Gary Rout and Tommy Wright. Again, Tommy was fantastic. He sort of showed me the ropes kind of thing. Then I went down and worked with Gary and Gordon, and they were big influences as well. And how you change and how you adapt. And I think for me, it's always about, you can't stay in the times. You've got to try and move forward. You've got to try and think the next step ahead rather than just say, well, this is what we're doing. I'm very much a progressive manager. I want to try and improve and try and not adapt the game, change the game, move with the game, if you know what I mean. So, everyone's wanting to play a certain style, and, how do you adapt? How can you get better? How can you get a step ahead?
Now, the family home's in Dunblane. What kind of time are you usually setting off in the morning? And is that journey time excellent kind of time for you to consider everything for that particular day?
Yeah, my wife was nuts because I don't listen to anything on the radio. I'm in silence. She doesn't understand. But that's my time where I just got to think. I say to Barry and Macca, they asked what we're doing training the next day, Gaffer, and I said, well, I'll tell you in the morning. I have a rough idea in my head, but it's the time I sit and I think about what we're doing, who we're playing. I quite enjoy that time.
So no music, no, you
Nothing.
Don't listen to the news?
No, nothing.
That's too much of a distraction for your train of thought?
Yeah, it's just weird, it's really weird, but that's what I think about, and that's what I kind of try and do. That's my time, driving through my own, so it's a bit of the peace and quiet that I do get.
Season 2020-21, Callum, I mean, absolutely incredible. I think the first non-Old Firm manager to win the Scottish Cup and the League Cup for over 30 years, and yet at the start of that season you lost 7 of your first 10 league games as a manager. At the start of that campaign, what were you thinking? Am I out my depth? Am I up to this?
No, because actually if you look back in performance, performance levels, they were really high. We had some, let's say, dubious decisions, refereeing decisions. So, firmly believed that what we're doing was right. We played I talked about it earlier, we talked about trying to move with the game, end up playing 3-4-3. People call it, if they want to call it, it was the 3-4-3 system we played and someone that studied. I think Alonso did it by Leverkusen when he went unbeaten last year. So I basically played a system that was unknown to a lot of people, and we slowly adapted and we slowly got better. And the way we played in some games, for St Johnstone, the football was really good.
When you set out in that first full season as a manager, I'm taking it never in your wildest dreams could you have imagined how it would conclude?
No, I know. It's you take the job. Obviously coming in after Tommy, who was really successful. I think St Johnstone probably punched way above their weight at that point. I think they were, the success they had. I think when I got there, I think probably a lot of the big teams were back in the league. Rangers been out of the league for a wee while. So at the time I knew the league was hard. Knew the size of the club. Knew it was going to be a really difficult task to, first and foremost, keep the league because there's a lot of competition there. But I had firm beliefs in what I was doing. and I knew exactly what I wanted to do. The group of players I had to add a few in. Managed to get a few that I thought could help us. And, what I did, I believed in the process and believed what we were doing. And that was probably the biggest thing.
I think winning the League Cup would have been magnificent enough for you in your first full season, to then get the Scottish Cup as well, and you immediately then join an exclusive club. We're talking people like Bill Struth, Scott Simon, Jock Stein, Alex Ferguson, Martin O'Neill, Brendan Rodgers. I mean, it's a remarkable club. For you to be alongside them must, even now, do you still kind of pinch yourself?
Yeah, I probably didn't realise it probably back then. If I look back on it, probably now, I probably actually now think, well, it was quite remarkable. What we did with the wages we had, the wage structure we had, with the budget, where we were as a club. Size-wise, you talk about other managers at bigger clubs. And to do that was obviously we qualified for Europe as well, which was a huge thing as well. So we had success in sort of in the league and in the cups as well. You talk about a start, but we actually managed to fight through that, and we got better and better as the season went on.
Sadly, of course, not just football, life in general, it was a season hit by COVID-19, and there were no fans at Hampden for each. Is that probably the biggest regret?
Yeah, I think so. I think we couldn't celebrate properly. I remember winning the Scottish Cup with Tommy, and we went to Perth, and it was incredible. And it's something that I would probably want the players to enjoy and sort of live through. I think it was a great experience. I had loads of messages from St Johnstone fans, and watching behind their screens, obviously cheered them up immensely through that really difficult period in everyone's life. I think when we look back in 10 years on the COVID period, I think we wouldn't realise how hard it was on our kids and on everybody. So I think we managed to give a lot of joy to a lot of people from Perth.
You strike me as quite an emotional person, Callum. I think when you think back to that, does it every now and again, does it still kind of leave a wee kind of lump in the throat when you think about everything around that kind of success? I'm not sure about that one. I'm probably more emotional when it comes to family side and things like that. So I think for me it's I'm just delighted I was a part of it. And then you talk about the names there. I haven't really thought about that one either. So I'm very proud to have led the team in that season through that real difficult period, because it was a challenge. Start of the season with training with small numbers, and all the rules we had to follow and we had to sort of abide by. So yeah, just listen, it's one of those. I think as longer time goes on, the more I'll appreciate it. I mean, in the immediate aftermath of the Scottish Cup final, Cal, we were imagining you would get flooded with offers because it was such a magnificent achievement, and the names of the iconic managers before that had done it. How many offers did you get?
None. No, I didn't actively look. So
even offers that the media weren't aware of.
Yeah, no, nothing there at all. It was one of those.
Were you surprised? Were you disappointed?
It's a funny one, because a lot of managers saying this, and me just being honest, I think sometimes you are successful, you need to keep moving. I did know the record that when smaller clubs obviously won major trophies within a season or 2 seasons, they get relegated. I knew the reason for that is because we couldn't keep our players. You couldn't afford to keep them, because quite rightly so they'd overachieved, the players, and they're on a high and they're looking to progress, which is my job to do it. But I think if you look out most of the starting 11, I didn't manage to keep any of them. 2 or 3 had cruciate injuries, a couple older ones, and then 4 or 5 of them left within a season of winning the cup. So I knew it was tough, going to be tough for that. Offers wise is one of those. I think the proof was there. I managed to galvanise the team to win the double and get into Europe. So for me that was success in itself. I mean, obviously St Johnstone's a very special club for you, and it'll always mean the world to you, but deep down, it would have been understandable if you were thinking, right, I could be getting some life-changing offers here, because that was a remarkable success. Yeah, I know, I think so. I think if I was manager at Hibs, Hearts, Aberdeen, and I did that, it might be in a different story. I was always very surprised that Tommy never got more offers, when he was at St Johnstone, because I thought he did a brilliant job there as well. But again, it just must be, it just must have been the club at the time, that it wasn't a fashionable time to get a move. 2 years later, you're sacked, and it can underline how brutal football management can be. How hard did that hit you privately? I think it was probably obviously, if you get to know me, I love sport, I love winning, You know, I'm very competitive, as my family will probably tell you, and people who you know will tell me any sport that I play, you know, hate getting beat. So I think that was probably the biggest thing for me. You know, I want success. I got it early on. I knew after that, the season after, we obviously lost Witherspoon and Kane. We lost Alan McCann, Jason Kerr, you know, within a real short period, and we couldn't really replace them. So I knew it was going to be a tough season, that season. And it was a rebuild project, and I believe I was doing a good job. I knew there were going to be ups and downs along the way. We're 9th in the league at the time, you know, so if that wasn't success for St Johnstone, then, you know, I'm not sure what success is. You know, I think sometimes when you overachieve, they expect too much, and I thought I was actually doing a really good job, and I was trying to remould the squad again, rebuild it. Yeah, you have a few signings that we all do, some are good, some are bad, and it's just filtering them in and out, and hopefully by that process you can then build a team again that can start competing.
I mean, you started your career there as a young lad, you rose through the ranks, you earned the club a record transfer fee, you know, you became coach, assistant manager, so when the P45 arrives, does that make it even harder to take?
Do you know what? It's one of those, I kind of understand what football's about, you know, and I know that's the game, so I know that's always going to be part of it, you know. Now if I was a different club and maybe they'd actually help me then keep building on that squad, but St Johnstone, the only thing I loved about St Johnstone, they looked after themselves, they made sure they never put themselves in debt, they made sure they always paid their staff, you know, and that type of thing. I think it's always a big thing with St.
Were you looked after, Callum? I mean, there wasn't a legal battle? Did they deal with it as best as clubs can in that scenario?
Well, let's just say for my time there, and basically all the players and all the staff, they all got paid, and it was always one of those, they made sure that was the case, never overspent, you know, they never spent money that they didn't have, and that's for me. I understood that, and understood there will be tough times ahead as a manager of St Johnstone, like it is just now, you know, like it was 15 years ago when they got relegated, you know, so that is St Johnstone, you know, and I think they just have to enjoy the success they have, and it'll come and go with the club.
You had 9 months away from the dugout. How did you cope with that? And indeed, what's your mechanisms for coping with pressure and the all manner of, you know, different kinds of pressure that come there?
Yeah, I think for probably the end of that season was really tough for me. My coping mechanism, as my wife will probably say, is eating. So I probably put a wee bit too much weight on, didn't probably look after myself. Obviously I'm very active, I play a lot of sport and stuff.
Was there a period of feeling sorry for yourself?
No, never.
You're not that?
No, I didn't feel sorry for myself because I didn't really think it was, I personally think it was the right decision. I think I was doing a good job, so, you know, if I thought that I was really struggling and, you know, we're bottom of the league by miles and, you know, that type of thing, then I'd probably say that's fair enough, but I think what I had to deal with, I thought I was doing a good job. So I was disappointed to lose my job. I was then contemplating what I was going to do next. How did I cope with it? My wife gave me a paintbrush and said, go and paint the house. That was basically what it was. So that's it. I'm big into sport. I think a lot of people know me in sport, so I think golf, tennis, squash, badminton, whatever sport you want to play, I'll have a go, and that was obviously my out. I played a lot of golf, to be fair. I do love golf. I've loved it since I was a 10-year-old boy, so it's a great sort of release.
You're boss most days, but I take it when you go through that front door at home, you're not the boss?
Obviously no. No, she was fine. She was really good. She understood. It was really good. I've always tried to be fair with people and always trying to help people. So with the BBC, they helped me. They brought me in, and I worked with SFA as well in the coach education, which I really enjoyed. So I had bits to do there, you know, and it got me out to games. I think that's the big thing to start with. I wasn't sure I wanted to go to games to start, but I love football as well. So I think that definitely with BBC and SFA, that helped me.
Do you always try your hardest to kind of shield your family from the general pressure and stresses and strains of football management when you come home?
Yeah, I do. They do notice it at times. I think again at the end of the season, I think we're at dinner table and my wife turns around and goes, Lauren says, "What are you thinking about?" I went, "What do you mean?" Like, my head's go away somewhere else. But yeah, I try and do. I think obviously social media and that doesn't help. I think my girls probably found it a wee bit hard. You know, when I was obviously going through a rough patch, I think they basically came off social media. You know, these type of things, but that's just, unfortunately, that's life. That's the way life is just now. So yeah, for me, I try and shield it as much as I can. I try and be a cheery person at home. You know, I'm also quite a enthusiastic, happy person, so you know, that's what I try and be.
You came to Queen's Park in January, a very, very ambitious club. How impressed were you when you first started talks with the club about becoming their new head coach?
Yeah, I was really impressed with what they were trying to do, you know, and what the goals were and how they're trying to develop. For me, it's developing young Scottish players, young players, you know, and I think that was the big thing. It was a slightly different club, as in they were trying to build it from the bottom going up the way. You know, a lot of teams do it, they just try and build at the top first, you know, where this was a sort of more patient approach to it. You know, so it kind of excited me. Obviously they're bottom of the league at the time, so it was a big risk for me to take the job. You know, I'd kind of had a couple of interviews down the road in England, but again for me I just thought it was such a good opportunity to try and develop that, and my passion is sort of the young Scottish players and how do they get better, and it always has been. That's probably one of my drives. You know, I think I mentioned before, improving players, make sure they get better, challenging them, put them under pressure, these type of things. So it ticked all the boxes there. Biggest thing was for me was make sure we stayed in the league, and thought we actually performed, I think, really well when we got there. We managed to change it pretty quick and create a real positive environment around the place.
You made your name as a manager in the top flight, of course. You've got a contract with Queen's Park till 2026. I mean, ultimately, is it your aim to take the club into the Premiership? That'd
be the ultimate goal. But also, I think here as well, it's a slightly different one. It's making sure we have lots of good young Scottish players coming through. You know, I think the record last year playing under 21s was the best club in Scotland, and I think it's something I've always looked at. You know, whether or not my ideas will be able to come across and I can help it here. There's obviously a lot of different things going on here, but I'd like to make sure that I can put my influence, put my stamp on it, and hopefully we can see some really good young Scottish players, or just young players in general, coming through.
If you were able to take Queen's Park into promotion, and given what you achieved with St Johnstone, Callum, you can't rule anything out. How would that compare with that magical season where you won both major cups?
I don't really know the answer. I'll ask the question if we get promoted up to the top league. I don't think I'll ever repeat the St Johnstone season. You know, for a club that size, you know, and the resources they had. So I don't know if I'll ever top that, which is pretty sad. Never know. Other things that can top it. You know, there's different jobs. There's different aspects of other jobs that can come close. But I think for me, that probably. Well, I'm saying hopefully not. It's an interesting question, isn't it? Because now I'm starting to think about it. You know, I think you just need to keep moving on. I'm never somebody that looks back too much. So I think for me, I just need to keep moving on, try to be successful in what I'm doing, try to win, as I always do.
As you alluded to just a little bit earlier in our conversation, you're someone with a very good kind of sporting background. Is it fair to say that as a boy, there was times maybe you were thinking about winning the Open rather than winning, say, the Scottish Cup?
I still think about winning the Open. I read the book Amateur, that's me.
I mean, it's well known in football how good a golfer you are, Callum.
Yeah, it's one of those, you know, it's one of those I actually wanted to be a golfer before football.
Really?
Yeah, I wanted to go to the States and follow my scholarship, my career there, but you know, I think the sensible route was to go to university here, and I could still play football. So that was basically the reason I did it. So that was a simple answer to that question.
Scratch golfer at the moment, are you?
Possibly, aye.
Yeah. So. And I mean, tennis as well. You're very talented, and I understand there's a certain well-known family in the tennis world that you're friendly with.
Yeah, Jamie especially. You know, getting really well with Jamie. Obviously, know the dad and Judy as well. So yeah, lovely family. You know, really good, really nice people. So yeah, it's good for Dunblane. You know, I think it's really good for Dunblane that they've got that. You know, and it's something we can be very proud of.
Judy actually coached you at one point, is that true?
Yeah, she did, aye. Very briefly. So it's she actually, my wife will let me saying this, she actually coached my wife as well. So my wife's a really good tennis player. So again, yeah, she was obviously a big influence at Dunblane way back. I'm talking a long time ago now. I don't know if Judy will mind me saying that, way back in the late 80s. Yeah, it's great. It's great for Dunblane. And obviously what Andy and Jamie have done for tennis in general. You know, I don't think, talking my cup double, I don't know if I'll ever repeat it. I'm not sure we'll repeat somebody like Andy and Jamie, brothers coming through and being such stars on a huge stage, and you know, we're very proud of them.
Did Andy, Jamie and Judy message you after the double cup successes?
They're Hibs fans, so they've got no chance.
Are they still friends?
That's good. I gave him a bit of ribbon. I gave Jamie a bit of ribbon for obviously beating Hibs. So no, it's all good fun.
Callum, very grateful for your time.
Thank you. Pleasure. Thank you very much.
Cheers.